Surah 125. There lived in Luok on Aden a woman who was the ruler of her people. Her name was Hertusawa Opi, and she had ruled her nation for many years in peace. There were those in her nation who were greedy for power as they wished to overthrow Hertusawa Opi and arose against her. Because of this, a civil war started in her nation, and Hertusawa Opi had to flee to the mountains for safety as the enemy were many and all were not known. Many of Opi's very guardians were known to be her enemies. Therefore, she was not safe anywhere in her country, except far into the mountains. Opi went with her brother and an aunt deep into the high mountains of Gerunbak. One day Opi went unto her brother Savasanin and told him that she wished to go by herself to a secret place and thus pray, and for him not to tell her aunt where she had gone. Savasanin promised her he would not tell her aunt. Therefore shortly Opi went up unto a secret place and there prayed to Aradia. Opi prayed for many hours for guidance, when near twilight a spirit materialized beside a tree. The spirit said unto Opi, who shook with fright, "Fear not, for I have been sent of the Creator to guide you and tell you many things. The man who has led this rebellion against you is an old enemy of your father, who once tried to overthrow your father before he died. His name is Orksordon, and he has spies everywhere. You will have to go to the older tribes within the Not-Axo-Sur mountains, for they love you and will fight for you to overcome Orksordon and his followers. The war will last for many years. Many persons on both sides will lose their lives. Many towns and villages will be destroyed. Many shall become homeless. During this war, other wars will arise up around the world as the end draws near. Many around the world do not and will not ever believe that the end of the world will come. This war in Luok shall never come to an end, for it is the beginning of the last war for the whole world. Because of the war in Luok, other nations will be dragged into it when they come to the aid of both you and your enemies, and soon this will cause the whole world to be at war, and this war shall be the worst of all. Millions will die, whole nations will be destroyed. Soon after this great world war, the entire world shall be destroyed by fire, and then the sphere shall explode, and new planets shall form from its loss. Then will a new Aden be formed, and all of those who love the Creator and walk in the Creator's grace, and who keep his love within their hearts shall live on the new Aden. Negative things shall be cast aside, and peace shall reign for 1,000 years. Many shall seek the Creator for deliverance on that great and terrible day. But few shall be delivered from the wrath brought onto Aden, when the Creator shall destroy Aden. But you, Hertusawa Opi, are a good and just person in the sight of the Creator, for you were good to all your countrymen. There were no wants in your nation, nor suffering. You fed and clothed your poor. You lived by the teachings of the Creator. Therefore you, your brother and your aunt, shall be amongst those chosen to be saved and go to the new Aden. When you come to the new Aden, you shall not set foot on its surface for many years, for its surface will not yet be ready to live on. After many years, those who are living with you in the sky above the new Aden will alight upon the new world, and go to live under its surface in caves. There you shall live many years under the ground, and shall die there and never see the surface. Your aunt Ova, who now is one of your nation's beloved scientists, will be one of the first persons to live upon the surface of the new world, but she will also betray the rest of your people upon the new world, and be cast out from them, and you shall see her no more. Your brother shall become proctor of an underground city on the new world, and there he shall marry, and his great-grandson shall founder a nation upon the surface, and his descendants, after thousands upon thousands of years, will cause the destruction of the world. For your kinsman shall endure for eons of time, and shall be scattered to all the cosmos. Even now your cousin Dorvo Hexis is a priest for the Creator, and he will depart Aden to still another world in a different sun system, and his descendants will go into all parts of the galaxy. Go now to the village of Hopsupkul and tell him of your enemies, for he will gather all the tribes to go against those who would have your people live in squalor." With that, the good spirit went away, and Opi went to her brother and told him everything the spirit had said to her. Nin told her to tell her Aunt Ova about the words of the spirit. Opi went unto her Aunt Ova and told her what the spirit said to her in the secret place in the mountain. Then Opi, her brother and aunt, went to the Not-Axo-Sur mountains and unto the villages of the Hopsupkul. Hopsupkal, who loved the family Opi, was overjoyed to see Opi, but was saddened to hear of the civil war that had started on the coast against Opi and her followers. Hopsupkul had heard of Orksordan and knew he was a terrible hated man who loved wealth and didn't care if others suffered or died as long as he had wealth and the power that went with it. Hopsupkul promised Opi his help, and sent runners to all parts of the Not Axosair mountains to gather the tribes and bring them to the plain of Goet Bun. For many days thereafter, Hopsipkul planned the attack of Orksordon. Then he took his own tribe, along with Opi, Nin, and Over, and went to the plain of Goet Bun. There Opi spoke to all the tribes, which numbered several thousand persons, and told them of Orksordon. After many more days of readying for battle, the thousands of warriors headed toward the coast with Hopsipkul, Savasanin, Over, and Hertusawa Opi in the lead. After a few days, the huge army swept down upon the troubled area and attacked the army of Orksordon. The war raged for many days, with great numbers of people dying on both sides. Entire towns and villages fell in the wake of war. Opi, her brother and aunt fled to the island of Serpis, where Yohod the Lemurian was working on the United Worlds Council. There Opi told him of the prophecy told to her by the spirit. Yohod believed her and decided to begin building a great ship to escape the destruction of the world. Yohod went into other parts of the world to the top craftsmen, scientists, religious leaders, farmers, doctors, and godly people who he knew would be valuable to the new world. This task took him years. While Yohod was looking for the right people, the small nation of Gifs went to the aid of Opi's people against the powerful Orksordon. Orksordon went unto his friend King Uno of Gant for aid, and promised his half of all the wealth of Luok when the battle was won, if King Uno would aid him. King Uno agreed and sent his army against Opi and her allies. Opi went to Proctor Yangatag of Amoagara for aid. Yangatag sent troops to aid Opi. Soon other countries went to war against Gant, and Gant's allies went against Gif and Amoagara. Soon the entire world was at war. This war went on for many years all over the world. Yohad had his top scientist working on the great ship that would take the Chosen to the new world. The ship was to be 3 rowers across, by 3 rowers high. It was to be perfectly round, of a grey material known as pitimite. There was to be decks for the living quarters, decks for growing things, for storing food, for transporting animals, tools, machinery, and control decks, as well as a place for the engine and energy storage. Durvohexis also built a great ship to take some people of Aden to another world. The ship that Durvohexis built was round and very long, pointed at both ends. It had temporary rockets on its side that would propel it in space. Then they would drop off and the ship would drift through space until a suitable planet was found that they could live on. And then one end of the ship would be released from it, and another built-in rocket engine would lower it to the surface of the new planet. Durvohexis's ship was 1.5 rowers long by 5 squats high. It had 3 decks for living space, supplies, and control area. Durvohexis gathered together the very poorest but honest people of the planet and left the surface 5 years before it was destroyed. Durvohexis and his 500 people and 200 various kinds of animals drifted through space for 2,400 years, for generations died and were born during this time. When the descendants of Durvohexis had reached a suitable place to live, they found that the engine to lower the ship in space did not work, so they constructed a smaller ship in space and ferried the people a little at a time, and their supplies to the surface of the new world. Only 200 people landed on the new world, which they called Pomas. Pomas was a small world, but a third smaller than Aden. Pomas was a world of many small seas, few mountains, and 4 seasons. There were no dangerous animals, no destructive forces, and they felt they had indeed found a pleasant haven. The people at first all stayed until they multiplied, and then they moved to other parts of the world. Thus was Pomas created. Surah 126. There was on Aden at this time a sage whose name was Etsos Wiz, who prophesied the end of Aden, who thus said these things: For the mountains shall spew forth fire, floods shall be upon the land, the ground shall quake throughout the world, the wind shall go mad, the seasons shall be in confusion, there shall be wars in every nation, there shall be murder and mayhem in every city and every town. The children shall lose respect for their parents. Wealth shall be more important than health. Men will forget that there is a Creator. The world shall run with blood. There shall be signs in the skies and in the stars. And soon thereafter a great fire will consume the world, and none shall escape, neither in the mountain top or in the sea or under the ground, or in any place upon the world. For the wrath of the Creator shall be upon the whole world and mankind. For this time is at hand. You shall not know the hour when this time comes. For the Creator shall strike when you least expect it. You will not know the time. Surah 127. Shortly thereafter much strife came upon the world, and the prophecies came to pass. and crime became so bad that no one was safe, and the just of God went far into the mountains to flee the cities and villages. But even in the mountains there were criminals to rob, to kill and harm the just, for there was no escape from the forces of evil that had befell upon the good. Some of the godly went on to the islands in the sea to escape the ungodly, but there too the evil ones went by boat to rob, to kill and bring harm to the godly. Aradia became angry and set his wrath upon the world, and the mountains shook, spewed forth fire, and rivers of fire went forth from them upon the land to destroy cities and villages. The seas left their beds and came upon the land. The ground opened up and swallowed the mountains. The winds went mad and blew away whole cities. Winter fell upon the whole of the world, and many froze to death. Famines came upon the land, and many starved to death. The air became poisoned, and people died by the thousands. The waters were polluted and unfit to drink. Every nation did battle one against the other. Children lost respect for their parents and their elders, and ran rampant like wild beasts in the streets. Death and disease and destruction were everywhere. There were strange sicknesses to come upon the people, and many died. There was torment without end for both the just and the unjust, and darkness fell upon the whole world, such darkness that brought death, and the chosen of God went into the sphere and left the world, for the time was close at hand, yea, but a little way off. Surah 128. And when all the just of God had left the world, the unjust tried to build ships to flee also, but time was running out. Surah 129. And greater destruction fell upon the world. Stars fell from the sky, the moons turned red. A wind greater than all the winds of the world came down upon the land and blew away whole cities and killed thousands. Quakes destroyed whole nations, and fire spewed forth from the ground. The people were confused, for everywhere they did flee no place was safe. Neither the high mountains or the sea are under the ground. Surah 130. And year after year, season after season, greater wrath fell upon the whole of the world, and the very ground became a river of fire, and millions of people did burn up, and the whole of the world shook. Surah 131. From the core of the world did a great fire spring forth upon the surface of the world, and the mountains melted, the seas boiled away. Every city, town, village, mountain, and every living thing burned up, and then with a roar louder than 1,000,000,000 times 1,000,000,000 erga-hertz, did the whole of the world explode. It flung itself to the far reaches of the galaxy. Surah 132. Thus did the people of Aden burn up and become no more, and thus did the unjust also come to an end, and thus did the just escape. Surah 133. For those that went with Yohod, they went far out in the void to escape the destruction of Aden, for its destruction caused the end of other worlds, and from its destruction new worlds were created, for this was the time of the new beginning.